Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host, and tonight our discussion is, again, from Snakes in Suits. Paul Babiak and Robert D. Hare, both PhDs, but tonight's topic is psychopathic manipulation. And we say the psychopathic word, but basically we could retitle it toxic person manipulation. And again, normally I don't read stories, but there's a really short one here, which I found kind of interesting, so we'll go ahead and indulge in that one. The group that had formed on the lawn collectively gasped as Ted, their neighbor, was led away in handcuffs by a policeman. The guy's wife was holding their young daughter, crying, and fumbling through her pocketbook to find her keys to her car. She glanced at the neighbors, who looked away out of respect and embarrassment. Ted yelled back to her, the wife, "Don't worry, honey, just a mix-up. Call a lawyer. His number's in my desk. He'll take care of this." Behind Ted and the officer were others carrying file boxes and a computer, plus some garbage bags filled with something from Ted's home. And of course the gossip occurs. "Can you believe it?" whispered Martha quietly to her neighbor. Sarah, "No, I can't," joined Ed, moving closer to the front of the growing crowd to get a closer look, or a better look. Ted was the chairperson of the block association that helped to protect the residents from burglars and their children from predators. He attended church when he was in town. His job required a lot of travel, and his wife would make cakes to raise money for the building fund, and was just a delightful person. Nobody could ever fathom what all this was about. And then somebody says, quote, "Here comes Ralph. Let's see what he found out." Ralph played softball with some of the people on the police force and checked in with one of his friends who sat in the cruiser blocking the road just in case Ted tried to flee. "Stole lots of money from his company," he said. "Embezzlement, big time. They think he's been doing it for at least 2 years. It only came out recently. Apparently he was able to hide it from everybody." "Oh my Gad," gasped a few folks in the group. This was such a quiet neighborhood filled with great professionals, many with little children. It just didn't make sense something like this could happen. "It must be some mistake," offered Sarah. "Maybe," and she was cut off. "I don't think so," interrupted Ralph. "Apparently his real name ain't Ted." He looked around and lowered his voice, "and Sheila isn't his only wife." "Oh my Gad," gasped the group collectively. That's the precursor to this section of the video. I figured it was short enough. It kind of paints a very realistic picture. Now, the story becomes a little more dramatic under the section in this book called Psychopaths Everywhere. Well, they're talking about the common trait of these monsters in the Cluster B group. They have what's called a double life, or I'd say triple or quadruple or more. But they're talking about leading a double life has become big news recently, as better forensics coupled with more knowledge about psychopathic manipulation have increased law enforcement's ability to unmask frauds. And then they mention a recent Oprah Winfrey program discussing a book called Blood Brother, 33 Reasons My Brother Scott Peterson is Guilty by Ann Bird. Dr. Keith Ablow, a forensic psychiatrist, noted that Scott Peterson, the man found guilty of the brutal murder of his wife and unborn child, fit the profile of a sociopath. Peterson was able to present the convincing face of a concerned husband, even participating in the search for his missing pregnant wife, all the while planning a future with his unsuspecting girlfriend. In home movies, he came across as a normal, fun-loving husband and father-to-be soon. The real Scott Peterson, though, can be appreciated by anyone who watched his television interview or listened to the taped phone conversations his lady friend made once she discovered that he was already married and that his wife was mysteriously missing. This stuff is real and it's sick. In these audio and visual documents, he shows no apparent concern, empathy, remorse, or even sadness at his wife's disappearance, despite or perhaps because of a major police investigation. He attempted to leave the country, outfitted with a new hair color and a packet full of money. Clearly, the evidence amassed by authorities was sufficient to erase any doubt in the minds of those who counted in the end, as a jury of his peers convicted him of the brutal murder and sentenced him to his death. Is it ever possible to discern the potential for cold-blooded violence before it's too late? As far as the authors know, the people that turned out to be so rotten did not display any murderous tendencies early on. And they're talking about psychological autopsies are more useful for generating hypotheses about behavioral patterns than they are for providing causal explanations of an event. Furthermore, even if family members, close friends, and associates had noticed that all was not right with these particular people, they would not necessarily have appreciated the potential significance of the information and might not have known how to act on it. What we can say, however, is that even if we cannot predict specific events, the behavior of psychopathic individuals does not occur out of the blue and seldom is out of character. The problem is that without prolonged and perceptive interactions with these people, we typically are not sure what the person is when it's obscured by a charming, physically and socially attractive exterior. An interesting thing is they have a little excerpt after this section about Scott Peterson, and the label at the top is, "Where was the emotional connection?" And they say that many trial watchers came to see this guy as a manipulative, charming, pathological liar with a grandiose sense of self and inability to empathize. The absence of emotion is hallmark of the psychopath, forensic psychologist J. Reed Malloy said. They don't have the internal psychological structure to feel and relate to other people. Sometimes they can imitate it so they can fool other people, but there will come a point when they can't maintain it. Yes, that's right. Even passionate, angry, and accusatory outbursts from the family members Peterson was once close to didn't appear to faze him. That fits too, Dr. Malloy said. Psychopaths can't form truly intimate bonds with others. Key point. Such an absence of heartfelt emotion, quote, gives the psychopath the ability to at times kill without remorse and kill for reasons filled with banality, he explained. Others' emotions of grief and rage and fury are like water off of a duck's back. The apparent lack of emotion raised investigators' suspicions in the first place. Police and prosecutors said when they gave their first news conference after the trial began, quote, his major concerns weren't Lacey at the beginning of this case, explained Modesto Detective Al Brashini. He's a calm, cool, nonchalant, polite, arrogant. He thinks he's smarter than everybody. Ann Bird, who desperately wanted to believe her half-brother was innocent, thought his behavior was strange when he lived with her family during the investigation of Lacey's disappearance. He is the most empty person. Everything he does seems to have been copied from someone else, says Bird, who last visited Peterson at the San Mateo County Jail in January 2005. Peterson seemed in utter denial as he talked about getting out of prison and leading a quiet, simple life somewhere. She had said, I was wondering if he really understood the extremity of the whole thing. I think he's bright, but he's kind of soulless and empty. Somehow he's been lost. Crack, baby. Psychopaths need greater stimulation than most other people in order to feel anything. Malloy said a phenomenon that struck Bird as particularly true in Peterson's case. The drive from Modesto to Redwood City was a really big deal, she had said. There were blocked off streets and lights were going off. It was really intense. He actually seemed excited about it. And she had thought, this is not something to be proud of. This is your life. Peterson exhibited similar behavior upon his arrival at San Quentin, where he will most likely spend the rest of his life. After arriving at 4 a.m. on a Thursday, he told the guard, I'm too jazzed up to sleep. The most intense emotion he's derived through the whole trial was the excitement he received when he darkened the doors of San Quentin. So the last part of this section is the authors state that psychopaths are very effective at masking their true selves from those they wish to manipulate and con. Merely having a mental checklist of the traits that define psychopathy does not guarantee success in spotting the creature. In fact, it's not uncommon for well-trained researchers in the field of study to be fooled and manipulated by these known psychopaths they've just met. Your ability to recognize psychopathic manipulation is increased if you are not seen as valuable or a threat to the psychopath. Therefore, you're of little interest to them. Psychopaths invest a lot of mental energy in identifying and manipulating their victims. They don't spend much energy, though, trying to uphold their mask for those with little utility. The return on the investment is just not there for them. Individuals who are ignored can be in a good position, though, to watch these creatures and see them manipulate others. And with this knowledge of how it's done, they may be able to get glimpses behind the mask. People learning about psychopaths for the first time sometimes begin to see psychopathic traits in some people they know. Former bosses, ex-spouses, public officials, teachers, family members, and friends often become suspects if they happen to display behaviors that are on the list of psychopathic traits. Now others, as I did when I took abnormal psychology, it says others new to the field will begin to see psychopathic traits in themselves. Much like doctors in training sometimes think they're experiencing the symptoms of diseases they're studying. Being aware of one's own tendency to attribute psychopathy to those displaying some of its features, including oneself, is important in honing one's skill in spotting the real thing.
Look, honey, you're going to have to get with the program. Transhumanism is in, which means that little cock of yours, you need to chop it off and become a Virginia. Become a lady like I did. It's not going to do you any good. In the New World Order, they have no use for little noodles like yours. So, do what I did. Come on. Let's march together. Transhumanism is the way.
Are you in this country or not? You gotta keep up with the program. There's no longer a male or a female. In fact, my daughter, who I almost aborted, had to choose from 30 different choices of how she considers herself. Is she a girl? Is she a boy? Is she a curious girl? Is she a this or a that? Oh my God. Get with the program. You are so outdated. You have no idea what kind of world we live in.
Well, if I must say, I'm pretty glad to hear that your world's coming down. You're finally learning things like Kim Kardashian's really a man. Michelle Obama is really a man. And Barbara Bush is a big old bull-dyed tranny. Welcome to the New World Order. At least some of us are in tune with it. And if you're a boy and don't want to have your private parts cut off, then honey, you're not going to make it in the future. I don't think you're enlightened enough yet, but Madonna and I are Pussy Willow buddies in the Illuminati. They have a different name, but you get the drift. You need to do some studying. You're old-fashioned.